That's weird.
Listen to my tongue. I think we're on. Let me check here.
Okay.
You guys, hello, aloha, howdy, and aloha. This is James with Monotalk. Tonight, I have some very special guests. They are from the Green Party, and tonight we will be talking about Veterans Affairs, maybe some health care, and a few other things of that nature. The people that I have on here tonight, along with my fantastic co-host, is Green Party Mike. Hey, Green Party Mike.
Hey, hey.
Hey, I've also got Justin Reinhardt. And Justin Reinhardt, hi, is running for state rep, District 21 in Maine. I also have Cal. How do you say your last name, Cal?
Use my native name. Cal Songmaker's fun.
Cal Songmaker. It's great, great. And Cal, where are you running at again?
I'm running for U.S. Senate in California.
Right, U.S. Senate in California. And then I also have Chris Richardson, who is having a little technical difficulties with his camera, but hopefully he'll be on soon. Anyways, he's here, and that's what's important. He's running for California District 7, and he's here. Anyway, I want to say thank you guys for coming on. I truly appreciate it. You're on Monotalk. We are live on Twitter and on YouTube. So I know we had some questions, but I think the real reason why we're here is we want to support our vets, slow down the wars, and fix things.
Yep.
I mean, Mike, do you have a question for somebody or?
Well, I think a good question for Veterans Affairs is obviously healthcare. It's a big issue for all veterans. And I think that there's always a push to try to privatize it. So I'd like to get the feedback on all of our panel here to find out what your position is or what your ideas are on privatization of veterans healthcare.
Okay. Well,
who wants to go first? I'm gonna just let you know we can't all speak at once. So who wants to go first? You have to jump up and raise your hand, like Mr. Carter, Mr. Carter.
James, why don't you just pick who goes first, James?
Okay. Chris, sounds like you wanted to go. Go ahead.
Yes. Actually, having worked for the VA for over 10 years and worked for SAIC doing the Army, Navy, and Air Force hospitals, using the VA software, oddly enough. And the VA software was developed by VA personnel on VA time, which means that you guys own it. It is already paid for. It is available under the Freedom of Information Act. It's 180 different aspects of the hospital all in one package, and it'll run on a laptop. And it is a real gem. And the VA management has been trying to replace it for about 30 years and failing every attempt. I mean, we have spent gobs of money to replace it and have accomplished nothing except the expenditure of money. And they have done everything they can to sabotage it out in the field. One of the things that made it so powerful is that it was a toolkit. It's a toolkit for solving problems, basically. And basically, we had what was called a golden pair, a programmer and a subject matter expert, a doctor, a nurse, a lab tech, somebody who knew their job really well. And they would sit down with the programmer, and in a few hours, a couple of days, they would have a new application that's ready to roll. And the good subject matter expert and the programmer would come back the next day and ask the staff what worked and what didn't work. And that was what they worked on that day until, they polished it until it was really, really solid. And then they would share it with another hospital, and the other hospitals would share it between themselves, and they make improvements and they expand it. And, it was a whole industry within the VA that was producing exactly what the veterans staff needed in order to serve the veterans. One case in point was BCMA, barcode medication administration. Basically, it's using the system to tell you when certain drugs need to be given to certain patients. And, and the medications were unit dose. They were packaged and barcoded, and the patients had a barcode on them, and they would walk past and barcode that patient, and up would come the meds that needed to be prepared for that patient, and they would prepare them for him, give them to him, deliver the meds, watch them take them, and move on to the next patient. And that one little system reduced medication errors by 86%. That's a lot of healthier patients than you might have expected at a regular hospital. And in comparison with commercial systems, Vista is a far more complete system than any of them are. And it includes everything from facility security to the library, the pharmacy, the dietetics. They do drug interaction. They do drug food interaction, drug allergy interaction. All these things in order to try and keep the patient safe. And that's what we're throwing away. And basically, bringing the third-party vendors in is it's like paying somebody to cart all the gold out of Fort Knox and dump it in the ocean and replace it with silver that we're going to rent.
That makes absolutely no sense at all. So it doesn't seem advantageous.
And we spent a great deal of time educating Shulkin, the guy who just got fired, on what it was that he was throwing away, and he refused to bring in the third party vendor, and so Trump fired him and is bringing in Admiral Dr. Jake Johnson or Jackson, and our only hope is that Dr. Jackson is enough of a doctor and worked in the emergency room enough to realize that this is really going to hurt the veterans' health a lot. You see, though, there's 40 years of outcomes already packaged up in these records, and it has been distributed, unfortunately, to different hospitals where that information was collected. And the way the military and the VA and Congress look at those hospitals is that each of them is an island. And when I was working for SAIC and we won the contract for the DoD hospitals, I suggested that we build what I called the holographic electronic medical record, where we can point to a particular patient or a group of patients and gather them up with everything we know about those patients and move them to another hospital and replay that ball of information and instantiate them as if they've always been at that other hospital. And that way we could, move the records around and, even build a national repository for this information so that we can start plumbing the best of care out of the patient records. But, that doesn't make money for the third-party vendors. So Congress wants to they're willing to throw away gold in order to put silver in the pockets of the third-party vendors. And that's what's happening. And we're losing an awful lot of expertise out at the sites because the VA is actively moving all the programmers out of the hospitals so that they can no longer communicate with the doctors and nurses. It doesn't make any sense. It's really the most short-sighted thing you can imagine. Now, if they go to Cerner, it's going to cost $10 billion just for them to get started. Just to get started. Now, when we were doing the proposal for the Army, Navy, and Air Force hospitals, 200 hospitals around the world, SAIC was one of 4 members of the compute off. There was Baxter Travenol, Technicon, McDonnell Douglas, who was the premier SEI site in the country, software engineering, and SAIC doing the VA set aside. Now that was under Sonny Montgomery, who was congressman, who was considered the foot soldiers congressman, and he insisted that the DoD try the Vista model, and the compute off was each of the 4 contestants were given $25 million to build their entry into the compute off. Baxter Travenol and Technicon spent their money, and they said no bid and walked away.
Could we just get a sense of the panel's feeling at
that's
question?
Good. Hey, I know, Chris, you've got a lot of information. You could
I
probably
do.
go on for like a couple hours. We're going to
I
try
could.
I know it sounds like you could. So what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to, share and get to bullet points. Bullet points tonight. So Cal, you wanted to say something?
The bullet points out of this were that McDonnell Douglas was 68% functionality, not too bad, but their bid was $2.6 billion. And now this was in the $86. And McDonnell or SAIC's entry into the compute off was 98% functionality and 1.01 billion. So we were about 40% of the number 2 bid. Okay. And they walked away from the table, and we got the whole contract. And we did it. We were successful. And
okay, thanks, Chris.
Hospitals in the DOD.
Chris.
Yes, go ahead.
Here's my bullet point. My bullet point is I'm totally opposed to the privatization of the VA. My example as to why this is a bad idea is the United States of America, which has private medicine. It's a disaster. We should have socialized medicine for everyone. That's what I have to say on the topic.
Well, you're right.
And how about you, Justin?
Yeah, Chris, could you let Justin chime in, please?
Absolutely, please.
Thanks.
I am definitely here for the echo chamber as far as single payer healthcare universal system. I am I'm always working opposed to groups like the Concerned Veterans of America, who are working with this administration to try to privatize healthcare. And that's really what I worry about with Jackson's coming into the position that he got. I'm more worried that this administration seems to be putting people in charge that want to make things not work right. Kind of, it seems to me like they're putting people in charge of these offices with the intentions of letting them fail to lose funding. Well, a lot like,
Precisely.
Absolutely.
yeah, a lot like Betsy DeVos and Ben Carson as urban housing development, and
Yes.
obviously DeVos's education. I mean, these people have no experience doing this kind of thing. So I mean,
Right.
it seems like you're just randomly pulling names and putting them in charge of stuff to make.
I don't think they're
systems
random. I think they're trying to make people money.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Absolutely.
you mentioned Jackson. Can you tell us who Jackson is and what position he has, where he came from?
He's an admiral. He
Hey, Chris.
he's a doc.
Chris,
Chris, I'm going to mute you because you've got to let the question go to where it needs to be, please. I know we got a lot to talk about. I'm asking for your cooperation. Let's work together. Okay. So Justin, go ahead. Who's Jackson?
Jackson's an admiral. I don't know much about him other than he was appointed by Trump. I know he was a avid Trump supporter before that. I don't know much of his career. Personally, I have a hard time believing that any admiral or any doctor, anybody that was in charge of soldiers would have a disposition to do things that would be detrimental to them. But in this particular administration, it's one of those things where you really have to question whether or not, this is in the best interest of the troops. And I guess time will tell. We'll have to wait and see. I hope for the best because we're all in this together, but I'm skeptical to say the least.
I was a Navy hospital corpsman. I dealt with Navy doctors all the time. They are by and large very good. I know nothing about this man, but that he was Trump's doctor and that he rubber stamped his clean bill of health on his physical, which is suspicious in itself. But the main thing is he was, as you hinted at here, Justin, he was appointed by Trump. So I think that speaks volumes in itself.
So I think Cal's pretty much nailing it. What he said is everything's done for the purpose of a spreadsheet, more capital, larger paychecks for these people, and it's not done in our behalf. So however the position is, or whoever's appointed in a particular position, especially with this administration and ones in the past, it's helping them, the elite, to do their bidding, and that's why you guys are running for your positions, and that's why you guys are going after what you need to do, because you want to change and stop this thing. You're not going to work for the elite. You're not going to work for the corporatists. You're not going to work for the super PACs and the giant lobbying bodies and the 1%. You're going to work for the people, and that's why you guys are doing what you're doing. Now, as far as Veterans Affairs are concerned, the biggest thing I'm hearing about Veterans Affairs is the expediency of it. It takes forever. I'm a Navy vet. It sucks. You don't get a lot. You wait in lines. Is the first thing that you guys would do, of course, is just speed it up. But you have to just drop a bunch of people. And what is the Chris? I'll let you go ahead and handle this, Chris.
Okay.
What's
a lot of the
fastest way?
Okay, the fastest way
Bullet points.
Okay. Hire more doctors. That's the limitation there. And they're doing more and more with kiosks in the hospitals to try and speed things up, and that kind of works, but it's error prone, and it's a learning curve for the veteran. Are you familiar with the kiosk system there at the VA? Okay.
Yes, we use it all the time. You go in, it's sort of like self-checkout at supermarkets. Right. That's what it amounts to. It's costing people jobs. The best way to deal with the slowness of the slow time in seeing a doctor at the VA is to actually make local doctors available. They're trying that. It's not really working very well. I think if they continue to work on that and might help, that people can see local private physicians instead of driving, in some cases, fairly long distances. I have to go almost 40 miles to
Shit.
the nearest
sure.
VA to see my doctor. There's plenty of local doctors. I've been waiting about a year to have my hearing tested since I'm getting a little bit old, a little bit hard of hearing. No, these aren't hearing aids, but you know, I'd like to have my ears tested so I don't drive people crazy. That can be done locally.
Right.
It's that seems like a great fix. I think it's just cooperation, integration, getting them, because the doctors, they want to get paid. They want to get paid. They want to see their checks coming faster. That's why they have these giant corporate third parties go after money for them and do collections all the time. But the biggest thing is, if they're getting what they need to perform their duties efficiently, then they'll take care of our veterans efficiently. And I think it's a great idea to let, if you've got a card that says vet and you want to see a freaking doctor, it should be automatic. It should be automatic that you walk into
Yes, of course.
any facility.
We need to add that everyone should have a card that says they can see a doctor anywhere. But that issue aside, absolutely yes. And the weird thing is, I didn't mention this. A lot of times I have to go all the way to Sacramento from where I live. That's over 120 miles down there, and they pay me travel pay to the tune of over $100 for me to drive down there. They might as well be paying a doctor in town as for me to drive down there. So it doesn't even save money.
Can I break in with the question? So as Green Party candidates, we usually advocate for progressive issues, and a lot of them are connected. If we had free access to education at the higher levels, we could probably educate more doctors, more of our young people into being doctors, and this would make more doctors available to the VA and everyone else. I like that, Cal, that you mentioned everybody should have health care. Can you give us your perspective on that? How about Justin? We start with Justin.
Yeah, I definitely, I would get behind programs that gave us more doctors that were available to the VA. I think that if anything else, we could take some of that spending that we use for the defense budget and also upgrade the infrastructure of the VA, get some more data processors out there so that way we're not waiting 6 months to find out if we're approved or not. Expedite things through the VA board. Also, I mean, those programs that you're talking about between doctors and the VA care, I mean, that should be one of those programs that they came up with not too long ago where you do civic duty in place of working at a regular hospital and they take X amount off your tuition bill or something. Like, we could make programs like that to make sure that we have the infrastructure needed to take care of soldiers. This shouldn't be an issue, especially with 60% of discretionary budget going to military defense. This should be swallowed up in that part of the budget. There's more than enough money to make it happen.
Well, and this is one of the things that our not-for-profit has been doing is making this whole model available and helping people adopt to it and learn the technologies and extend the technologies that were built into this system. Oroville Hospital, just north of Sacramento, is now running our software, and they're actually making money off of their electronic medical record software. And they have their own staff. They do their own extension to the model, and they're supposed to be putting some of it back into the open source, but we don't hold them to that. It would be nice if they did, though.
Does anybody else want to answer that question, Cal?
I thought you were asking the question about whether we thought that healthcare for everyone, if we agreed with that. Yes, I agree with that. I don't know computers like Chris does. I don't really have anything to say about computer systems.
What I was asking is, does it make sense as Green Party candidates? We usually advocate for free education at the public schools.
Mhm.
And would this help the availability of doctors to have programs where we could educate more doctors so that there's more doctors available to the healthcare system overall and specifically the veterans?
I'm for free education for everyone from kindergarten through university. And I think that additional things could be added for certain occupations like doctors so they could continue after they got a bachelor's degree. In fact, I don't see anything wrong with asking whether or not we could have free education through graduate school. What's
No,
wrong with
I
that?
think it would be a big shot in the arm, frankly. Yeah, we definitely could do that. That's part of my platform as well. And I'm a big proponent of directed independent studies and getting people interested in this technology and moving forward with it is a great way of maximizing the capabilities of the software that's available and what it could be.
Just so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle, I don't know how many conservative people are listening to this, probably not very many, but in the hope that there are some, we're constantly asked, where's the money coming from? And Justin did address that. It comes from this military budget. We don't need this bloated, staggeringly humongous budget spending squillions of dollars on war. I mean, I just read where one of these missiles that they're firing off into some innocent population cost $80,000 for one missile.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's obscene. That's totally obscene. That's
Yep.
where we get the money from. That stuff.
Hey,
And
if we can get millions and billions of dollars for another war, why can't we take care of our own people?
Yes.
It's insane.
Well,
it really
yes.
is.
You guys know the answer. It's about money. We always talk about it. But in regards to where the money comes from, subsidies, tax loopholes, campaign finance reform. I mean, you could find money that's wasted all over the United States, which is
Well,
very.
and
Yeah.
an awful
Go ahead,
lot of the money that is being spent on the military, we spend 4 times as much as the next country, and the next country is China. We spend 4 times as much as they do, and we spend more than the next 8 countries total. Total together, we spend more than the 8 countries. Who are we fighting? We seem to be declaring war on people just because we don't like them.
And the wars don't end. They don't end. They go on forever.
There's money
including with liberals like Obama. 8 years of war, and that wasn't even the start of it. It never ends. Why don't these wars end?
They don't. Well, that was one of the things that Trump was saying. Well, we're going to pull our troops out of Syria. Well, that's so we can put them in someplace else.
You must not have a hotel there.
Russians, but the whole reason that we are there in the Middle East is a false flag. 9/11 was a demolition. It wasn't an attack. In fact, 10 of the guys that they said were hijacking the planes are still alive. They're in Saudi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we can, there are lots of theories on that. You know,
it's not a
I think
theory.
it's about veterans, you know, and relative to war and where we're getting the money from. I was at an event recently that had a veteran from every war that we've been in since World War II. There was a World War II vet there too. Every
Uh-huh.
single one of them said we should get out of the Middle East. Every one of them. The answer to most of these questions is one word: money. It's always
Oil.
money.
Well, and you get away from oil, and you know, you have renewable energy, and your environment improves. Gee whiz. Where's the downside of that? You know?
Yeah, if you guys, I don't know if you guys ever seen this movie, but I bring it up all the time. It's called War Dogs. These guys actually, it's from a movie. What was that? Kick Ass, not Kick Ass, but Badass,
Super
whatever.
bad.
I'm sorry.
Super bad.
Super Bad.
It had the two kids super
Seth,
bad in it.
Seth, whatever his last name is, he was in there with the guy who played the stretch guy from the new Fantastic Four, which is kind of a flop. But anyway, it's a new movie. It's only been out for like 2 or 3 years, and the first part of the movie is great because it talks about when these guys are arms dealers. The first part of the movie, it talks about when he sees these troops. To them, each one of them is carrying $17,000 worth of equipment. It's war
Incredible.
has become the new huge economy. So a lot of things aren't getting done, and we're putting people in harm's way, and we're continually going and create. Do you guys agree that we're actually creating wars? Does anybody agree with
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Now that we're done talking about health, I'm going to have a cigarette.
there you go, buddy.
Okay.
I
Yeah, smoke up.
Light it
That's
up.
okay.
Go ahead.
haven't quit, so
Vaping.
Hey, can I break in with a comment and a question? So last month, the New York Times said that the U.S. military officially admits it's fighting in 7 wars across the globe: Yemen, Niger, Iraq, Syria, Somalia, Afghanistan, and Libya. We always talk about money, but can we talk about the morality of war and what we're doing to people in other countries?
oh, it's exploitation for sure.
Well, and we've been identified by the rest of the world as the biggest threat to democracy in the world right now. I mean, and you know, it's crazy. It really is nuts because you know, we gave $110 billion worth of weaponry to Saudi Arabia, and they're persecuting the Yemenis for no real good reason except that they want the mineral rights underneath Yemen.
No war in most of our memories, and some of you don't even remember back to the Korean War. Since the Korean War, no war has been justified. The World War II we could talk about separately. I have some
Sure.
ideas, but I don't think we need to get into that. But since the Korean War, it's all been about money, and that each and every one of them have been morally wrong.
Yes. Well, I hate to say it, but I think we're also fighting Israel's war in the Middle East.
And giving them a hell of a lot of money too, even though they have a better economy than we do. We're forking over millions and millions of dollars to them to persecute Palestinians.
Well, in fact, they helped us mine the buildings on 9/11, the World Trade Center.
I don't know about that. I mean, that's kind of a different topic.
Well, no, actually, it is. It's the same topic because that's a justification for why we are in the Middle East.
Not anymore.
It's our new Pearl Harbor. that is the bloody banner that we hold up every time we go into another country. And what we're doing is making more terrorists. We're bombing them from drones, and gee whiz, if they were doing that to us, we'd probably become terrorists too, you
Yeah,
know?
well, that's different than talking about 9/11 conspiracy theories, which is worth talking about. I'm not sure that's why we're here. I mean, we could
Yeah.
talk about whether the VA should vaccinate people against the flu too, if we want to sort of bring in the vaxxer people or whatever. Those are
Well,
worth talking about, but I'm not
sure.
really sure that's what people want to hear about here. I mean, I don't know what they want to hear about.
All right.
I don't even know. I don't even know who's here. But
There are a few people online. There's some people in the galley. They may have some questions. Honestly, you guys, I'll be honest with you. You guys, I would have done you guys, not done yet, but I would have interviewed you individually.
Hey, no problem.
But I'm glad you guys are here talking now. You know, and I appreciate it. But the thing is in regards to what we're discussing about war, about Veterans Affairs, about how it's affecting everything. Is it just me? But I'm getting the feeling that we're Darth Vader, or we're on the dark side. I mean, is that? I mean, what do you think about that, Justin? I mean, are we the evil doers and have been for a long time? Because I'm just I'm starting to sense that.
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely worth taking a look at. I mean, we have over 100 and something different military installations in places outside the United States. That's not freedom. That's not democracy. That's imperialism. So when you make a march across foreign lands and start putting bases up and stuff, that's sending a definite message to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be one thing if we were going down there with humanitarian efforts and setting up schools and hospitals and that kind of thing, but that's not what we're doing. So, I mean, to look at it objectively, if you're going to look at, I mean, if you're a conservative and you're looking at America and saying we are the beacon of all that is holy and just in the world, then, you know, where were we in Rwanda? Where were we in Darfur? Where were we in all those other places that really had genocides and stuff going on, where we turned a blind eye because they didn't have oil or whatever resource we were exporting from them? Right. I mean, those kinds of things are definitely something to look at. And it's kind of like what the message has been all night, which is, you know, just look at the money. You follow it where it's going and you find out why we didn't go to Africa to help out Rwanda, why we didn't step in for the genocide in Darfur, why we didn't do those things. You know, I mean, if we're going to sit here and talk about how the United States is, you know, moving across imperialistically across countries, the conservative mindset behind that typically tends to be, we needed to go there for these reasons because these people were being held up, and they try to make it seem like a horrible, horrible situation, in which sometimes it really is. But that doesn't take away from the other situations, which are just as bad, if not worse, when you're talking about like ethnic cleansing and things. Like those are very, very different issues than these people elected a leader that we didn't like, and so we're going to pull a regime change and throw the country into chaos. I mean, those are very, very different issues. So, I mean, yeah, it all plays an effect in how it comes down the pipe, because, I mean, it's going to affect everything from what we pay from gas and oil to what we get for medical supplies and everything else. Especially in the Middle East, where they're our supplier for opium. I mean, if we're going to be using any type of morphine for medicine or anything like that, that's our supplier. And I don't think Big Pharma is going to take kindly to us pulling out of there, because that's where their meal ticket is. That's who's paying them.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Cal, do you think we're the bad guys? Do you think we've been the bad guys for a long time? I'm just feeling it.
My short answer is I agree with what Justin said. My slightly longer answer is that I think there are lots of Americans who don't know what the latest polls are, but lots of Americans who don't support any of these wars, who don't, and lots of veterans who don't. And I think that it's a case of big money, whether it's pharma or corporations or whatever, wanting these wars, insisting on these wars, and needing these wars to enrich themselves.
Wow.
Well, also, I think that the media has underserved us rather badly. We're getting filtered news to the point where there are 6 corporations that are managing all the news that's coming through, to the rest of the population. And it's really a one-sided story that the population is hearing. And unless they are listening to the foreign press, they're not getting the full story at all. And that's a real problem. And I hate to say it, but RT, Russia Today, seems to be a lot more on target with what's happening than the American media is.
That's what I hold on. That's I gotta say something about that. What is amazing to me is that a foreign country, and I've checked the links, I've checked the references, I've done my due diligence. Everything that RT brings out pans out. They are, and it's sad we don't have an RT. A TYT tries to be RT, but they're not even close, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, we don't have an actual news, a viable, just honest, truthful, actual news station that actually brings absolute truth and complete facts.
No, we don't. We don't. You're right.
One that is part of, let's see, Democracy Now, I think it is. The lady lady and her friend that bring that out.
Amy
that
Goodman.
seemed to, Amy Goodman. She seems to
and Juan Gonzalez,
at least try. He at least tries to bring it out and does a pretty good job at it. But there's still an awful lot of slant that's being ignored.
I'll take Jimmy Dore.
Yeah. Hey, here's a good question for you guys. Here's a good question. We're gonna do a lightning round. Do you guys know who Ben Schwann is? Ben Schwann. Anybody know Ben Schwann? Look him up.
No.
He's right on board with us. You guys all like Jimmy Dore. How about Susie Dawson? Do you guys you know who Susie Dawson is?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Caitlin Johnston. Caitlin Johnson. Anybody Caitlin Johnson? Caitlin Johnston. Okay.
No.
Elizabeth Leah Voss. Anybody Elizabeth Leah Voss?
All of the names you're mentioning sound familiar to me, but I don't know why.
These are people that are talking about the same things we are. We got Mike Figueroa. He's from the Humanist Report.
I know him.
You guys know Tim Black, right? But Tim Black, you ever heard of Tim Black?
Yeah.
That's how we kind of got started. Tim Black came on here a few times, hanging out with us. But the thing is there's so many people out there that are telling it like it should be told. Getting the information that actually truly exists and presenting it.
Yeah.
When we don't even have anything like that in our own media. The mainstream, big corporatized 6,
what we're being
everything.
told is right out of 1984.
Right.
I was wondering when the Ministry of Truth was going to get it put in.
It's coming. It's already here. It's just got a different name.
We should see if the galley or the live chat has some questions. I'm going to ask them.
Yeah.
Unless, Mike, you got another question for the gang?
I think I do have other questions, but if you have a good question from the galley, we should give them a chance.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I don't think. Let me see. Robert Schultz is here. Rosenfield Tank. Kathy B. Hello. Rainbow Boom X. RSFO. Oh, the fly. Redneckonomics. Stevie, she's got her own show. Good stuff. Truth and Charge Pounds. You guys might know who that is. William Pounds. And a few others. Right now, we have approximately. We have 17 people watching. That's not bad.
No,
that's not bad.
I'm shocked.
Do you want me to ask a question, or do you have one there?
I'm just waiting for somebody. I just posted to ask a question, but go ahead.
So what do you guys think about Trump's appointments? Is it John Bolton for Secretary of State, and I'm sorry, to lead the NSA? I'm sorry, John Bolton, and then Mike Pompeo for Secretary of State. Do you guys have opinions on that? How about Cal?
Basically, I go back to what I said already. If they're appointed by Trump, I think they're well, excrement.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to say it. I'm opposed to them just on principle.
Yeah.
Anybody who would work for that man has got to be, at the very minimum, crazy.
Well,
Or desperate.
Yeah.
Let's not forget desperate. Desperate does a lot of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah. True. Yeah, I'm the more I hear about Bolton, the less I like him.
There's so many that are just terrible. I mean, the way I've always seen it, guys, is I always see it's a two-party oligarchy controlled by the new kleptocracy of the fascist state that's getting really bad. And when I brought up the feeling or the sense from so many people that yes, it is an empire. This is why Abby Martin says why her main title for her show uh, is Empire Files, because it's turned into an empire. You know, when you listen to Chris Hedges, when you listen to Noam Chomsky, I can't even say, I suck at saying his name. Noam Chomsky. You know, his methodic voice kind of sounds almost like yours, Chris. But the thing is they're all saying the same thing, and everybody's echoing the same thing, and it's getting very scary out there because we have to have people on that wall. We have to have people on that beach or in that bunker because we've made so many friends, right? So many friends that we have to now protect ourselves from ourselves, that all the shit that we've created, and how many people just truly and absolutely just hate our fucking guts. So we are at that point where we're not going to get rid of our military anytime soon. You guys know this. If it's done, it has to be strategically, smartly. We have to make sure. From what I'm seeing, is we have to make sure that we start to gain some trust. And that's going to take a while. We have to gain some. You see what I'm saying? We have to. It's going to take time to try to make friends with all these fucking people that we've just destroyed for decades. So I don't know if a lot of this is repairable, but the biggest thing is we have Greens like you guys that are running that would support trying to make amends. You know, offering that olive branch, right?
A really, really good way to do that would be to use the military as a jobs program as opposed to an invading force. Like, I mean, I know I mentioned it earlier, but setting out with humanitarian efforts, getting doctors out there that are trained on foreign soil. I mean, when things are going bad and you have a jobs program like that, if you can, I mean, back in the old days, the military was a jobs program. You'd come out and get educated. Now with a lot of outside contractors, if we could move it back to a jobs program that was used for humanitarian efforts or even just to better the citizenry, we could use it for infrastructure, the CBs and stuff. I mean, we could do all those things and it wouldn't
even
take
like
military funding. We'd just be able to, give it a different name. I mean, using programs like that, those
like
kind of
WPA.
What was that, Chris? Like what?
Like the WPA under FDR.
Right.
It's a programs that got people out of the depression. Got people doing reconstruction around the cities and rebuilding them and building roads, and of course the interstate came in with Eisenhower, and he also was a big proponent of education, and he's
Trust
the
me, the interstates are going to hell. I just drove out here.
well, because we don't have the
Tennessee,
maintenance. We aren't.
Yeah, that's
We
right.
are not
That's right.
doing the maintenance.
The infrastructure is going to hell. I'm surprised I've been able to stay online this long. My connection here in Tennessee is very dodgy, and I've had friends of mine who are big Obama fans tell me that he solved the problem with the connection and cell phones and whatnot, which is of course laughable. But
Well, his connection is doing just fine.
Yeah, his connection's fine.
Imagine it is, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody else's is fucked.
That's because he's connected.
Hey guys,
Of course.
Literally.
Yeah.
there's a question coming from the galley. Can I get it in for him?
Yeah.
Please.
Yes.
It's coming from Alan B. It says, in light of tonight's missile strikes in Syria, potentially Israel, how do we get veterans on board for the anti-war movement? Hey, Chris, why don't you answer this?
Well, that's kind of a tall order. Well, the veterans, gee, you have to remember that, like, after 9/11, the day after 9/11, the Jews rolled tanks into Jericho. Uh, they're really a much more bellicose group than they let on. And
I think that would be the Israelis, not the Jews.
well, the Israelis, yes. I'm sorry. You're right. I should have made that distinction. You're right. But there were Trump was saying how he saw Middle Easterners celebrating at 9/11. Well, those were the Israelis who helped mine those buildings with thermite. They were actually captured, and they were extradited to Israel almost immediately. Amazing.
Anybody else want to answer that question?
Well, my answer is I don't know if polls have been done with veterans, but the veterans that I know, as I mentioned earlier, are all opposed to these wars. If you've been in the military during a war, as I was, one a long time ago, called the Vietnam War, then I think you are almost automatically opposed to war, especially feudal wars like that. So I think the trick is to deal with this unbridled nationalism that we have that runs across the board, from National Football League to all kinds of other, people talking about Pledge of Allegiance and all of that stuff. I think it's fine to feel patriotic and love your country, but I think nationalism is quite another matter. And I think the nationalistic fervor that we have in this country has to be dealt with, and that will help stop people believing falsely that military people are fighting for their freedom, because a lot of people still believe that falsehood.
Well,
I would
it
just
is
add,
the Congress that seems to pay for all these wars, and we seem to get dragged into them with very little dissent. And as long as the big money makers are war, there's going to be people that love to make the ordinance, and you got to rotate your ordinance. You got to drop it on somebody. Dang it, it goes bad.
Jester, go ahead. Thanks, Chris.
I was just going to say, I mean, as far as trying to convince soldiers that they don't want to go to war, I mean, that shouldn't be a tall thing to do. I mean, it's not a hard pressed thing to say, you know, hey, we don't want you to go over here and kill people. Most people should get on board with that. I mean, that shouldn't be too hard for somebody to get behind. I don't think. Even as a soldier, I think I never went to war, but I know I'd be excited at the prospect of not going more than I would the prospect of going.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, there is a chain of command. It's the people that are up the line that you have to convince, and they don't have to be convinced. Unfortunately, they just
I
make
think
the
a lot of
decision
people who
forward.
go into the military go in there because they don't have jobs and or because they're looking for an education or the things that we
Sure.
have sort of talked about already. So these things are offered in exchange, you know, like the GI Bill and things like that. They think they'll get an education and come out with a skill that they can use, you know, in civilian life or something like that. Those things
It's like
can
the
be
Hunger
dealt
Games.
with. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they get an education, but it's it's a rough school of to survive.
Is there any other questions that you have, Mike, or any from the galley?
Yeah, please.
I didn't see any from the galley. I can ask another question. You don't have any more, James?
No, I just know what the source is. We just need to get another party in and
I-
yeah.
I
Go
agree. Let me throw in one more.
Okay.
What do you think about in our high schools, the ROTC pushing war and recruitment at that level? Anybody have a strong opinion?
I went to a school with ROTC, and I was in the ROTC program. I entered as a PFC. Those programs, it's a double-edged sword, really. They do a lot of good for the people that are in them, especially if you're in a inner city, something like that. It gives you a sense of brotherhood. You're able to go in there and actually like make some really good friends that'll last you a lifetime, especially if you all go in together, go in as battle buddies. That happens a lot. But it's also very dangerous to instill that kind of nationalism inside somebody so young. It leads to very not very well thought out decisions by the person in question. There seems to be a lot less questioning from people that have been indoctrinated like that, and more acceptance of conformity. And I personally, I wouldn't get rid of programs altogether, but I would definitely try to take the emphasis away from war and more into probably
Public
medical
service.
issues for war. Like if you're in the ROTC program, it's never going to hurt you to be a combat medic or know how to do those kinds of things. Those extra programs would help kids. Being outside of that and just running tactical operations and stuff and war games, they don't need that. Not at 17, 18 years old, 16 years old.
Well, just to make it a little bit clearer where I'm coming from, I went to college on the GI Bill. My father is a retired Army man. He was in the Army for 22 years. My grandfather retired from the Army after 30 years. So I don't want to pretend like I don't know something about this. Having said that, I will say this, that I think that ROTC programs, when you're talking about children, and that includes high school students, I think that's a form of brainwashing. And I think the ones that that are in college that are not humanitarian in nature should be abolished too. I don't think anything that teaches war should be subsidized in any way, encouraged or anything else.
Can we go to the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts? Is that Is that kind of? I mean, I was a Cub Scout and a Boy
Paramilitary.
Scout, but I'm just saying it's almost like a prerequisite to the ROTC program, and then boom, there you go. You're patriot. You're killing. You're shooting. You're Johnny. Get your gun. This whole mentality of what this country has been doing for 240 years, in the 240 years that we've been around, 220 of those years we've been in some kind of confrontation. Ben Schwann, look him up. He just said that we've invaded or in some way changed some regime or killed or knocked off or influenced an election or something of that nature, either with war or violence in some way, shape, or form, with 80 different countries.
Yeah,
For
I believe
forever.
it.
We've killed our nation, and I was in the Navy. I was on an aircraft carrier. That thing was just a vessel of death. And we've killed over 20, and I think this is a small number. In the time that this country's been around, we've killed over 20 million people. 20 million. This has got to stop. This is ridiculous. You guys know.
As far as the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts go,
Yeah.
I like the cookies. I like the cookies.
Yeah.
I think the Boy Scouts is really kind of dodgy.
Yeah.
I think some of the political stances that the Girl Scouts have taken are pretty good, and I actually do buy one box of cookies every year.
If you can get away with just one, you're doing all right.
That's impressive.
That's hard for me.
The Samoas, I love the Samoas, man. They
man.
changed the name, by the way, didn't they? They changed the name of a lot of these cookies. They still have the same
Yeah,
cookies,
I don't
but
know
they
what they're
changed
called
them.
now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of sad. But listen, you guys, I opened up. I think we're kind of cool. Everybody's good. We're all on the same page. We know what's going on. It's crazy. It's terrible. It's heinous and disgusting. It's a good thing you guys are running and putting yourselves out there on the line, combating some. I mean, Cal, you're going up against, Feinstein, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, we got to get rid of her. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
I'm not really totally convinced that I have a chance at this, but that doesn't mean I'm going to quit.
there you
I
go.
got in this from to stay to the bitter end, and now it turns out I'm going to have to be a write-in candidate because I didn't have enough signatures. I needed 7,000. That really takes money to get 7,000 signatures. It might not sound like a lot. Trust me, it's a lot. And,
It's a lot.
Even though I have to be a write-in candidate, I'm not quitting. I'm going to stay. So
Good for you.
I hope you write me in. I do have a Facebook page. It's Michael Cal Songmaker Ziesing on Facebook. I haven't put anything up there for a while because not too much has happened since I was informed that I didn't get the signatures. But I appreciate you having me on here, and thanks a lot. And thanks to all 17 people who listened.
Yes, absolutely.
Up in the gallery.
Hey, Cal, I just got to say, is even though you're a write-in candidate, I think that you getting your message out is important. And I think that's what we try to do
Absolutely.
here at
Thank you.
Green Party.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mike.
Absolutely. Because, I did make it onto the ballot, but I got 200 of the 2,000 signatures that I required. And it was like pulling teeth. There's an awful lot of folks out there that don't want to get involved at all. And I don't know how to get around that.
I'm glad you're on the ballot, Chris.
Yes.
And that's great. Let me just inform those folks who don't know this. The way a lot of people, I don't know about Chris, if you don't get the 7,000 signatures in California for a statewide office, then you buy your way on. You pay,
Exactly.
pay to get on. And I didn't have anywhere close to that amount of money. I wasn't close to having.
We had to pay the rest of it, and I did.
Well,
get
I'm glad you made it, Chris. I'm really glad you made it.
But yeah, I also put the bill for a ballot statement. So hopefully the the folks that read the ballot will read the statement, but not sure how that's going to go either. The whole process is really tough to get through.
I encourage people to run as Green Party candidates or as Peace and Freedom Party candidates or any of the so-called wasted vote people, because the vote isn't wasted, not wasted.
No, it isn't.
Chris, do you want to give us your social media account or your webpage that if people want to donate?
I'm on Facebook and I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm trying to get my web page up, and I've got the bank account. I just haven't got it hooked into the donations page, and I haven't publicized that yet. And I'm hoping in the next couple of days to be able to get the web page up, and I will distribute it at that time. And but you familiar with the Hatch Act? The Hatch Act. It
No.
means that you cannot do anything that's political on government property. So I was thinking, oh, well, I'll just go over to the VA hospital. No, there's the Hatch Act. You can't do it there. You cannot do it in front of the post office. There are lots of places that you cannot go and get signatures that would be ideal. And I think that's one of the things that needs to change, is that there should be an area that is specified in front of government agencies where people can get signatures, for running for political office. But they've made it so difficult to do that you either have to buy yourself your way onto the ballot, or you have to really burn the midnight oil in order to get those signatures. And like I said, a lot of people just do not want to get involved. And they won't even give you a signature to help you get onto the ballot.
And how about you, Justin? How about your, do you have a website for people who want to help you out, donate or volunteer?
Yeah, my website is Justin Reinhart for state rep, and I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter at reinhart.justin. I'm on Instagram, Reinhart1981. I am on the ballot. I can accept seed money contributions up to $1,000 from my crowd pack. I can only take $100 as a donation at a time. And really, I'm trying for clean elections. So, I mean, I'm trying to do that, and I can echo the sentiment about trying to find signatures. It is hard. I'm in rural Maine, so my neighbors are pretty well spread out, and I have to go door to door. I mean, that's what it is. I go door to door to all of my constituents. I'm trying to hit every door by the 20th when I got to get these things in, but it's a big district and houses are far apart. So.
Oh, gee, you still have
rural people have a real difficulty. I might live in California, but it's very rural Northern California. It's very hard for rural people to make it on the ballot with signatures.
Yeah, I'm on the ballot. I just got to get the clean elections, and I'm trying to be a clean elections candidate and do it the right way if I can. If I can't, I'll have to go traditional, and I'll be able to accept money from whoever. But I'm trying to make it to where it's just in state and play, as clean as I possibly can.
Yeah.
I kind of like the idea that Bernie Sanders had, where he was limiting the donations to like $27. And I know you have to get a whole lot more of them, but boy, you sure do spread it out so that the general population can donate to you, and still get onto the still get that money allocated.
Yeah, it's hard. The incumbent that I'm running against raised $20,000 last year, and she's a traditionally financed Republican. Got a lot of really good donations on her side.
Oh, sure. You know, I mean, but that's the thing is that they've got big donors and on their side that the money is their advantage, and they're buying the elections. And
Maybe a better idea is no money at all. No money
I
allowed.
think that would be wonderful. I think that's a wonderful idea. And maybe if we can get somebody in, we can start pushing that sort of a thing where maybe if you get enough interest going. Now you have to have at least 60 signatures in order to actually be a candidate, and then 2,000 to get onto the ballot for free. But they do prorate it.
7,000 for me.
Well, yes, for you it's 7,000 for the Senate, but that was one of the reasons why I went for Congress, because I it was a more
those are technical details, and I hope more green veterans run. That's what I hope.
Hey guys, real quick, I gotta say. So what we do here is we have the forum, we have people do panels, but usually afterwards we have a lot of people that come in all the time. Maybe they have some questions, maybe they just want to hang out and be a part of what you guys are doing. Snork is an engineer / entrepreneur / in the back of him he has a 3D printer. He's really a high-tech guy. But he's doing a lot of great stuff out there for green technology. We have a lot of people that come in. If you don't mind, they might start popping in every once in a while and saying hi, maybe asking questions. If you guys want to stay around and hang out, it's up to you. It's all cool.
Well,
fine by me. I'll stay as long as Chris doesn't talk about computers.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to talk about computers.
Let's not even talk about how Chris got on here so fast tonight, right? Mr. Computer Savvy guy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris. I had to do that, man.
Yeah, but hey, Cal, are you using my laptop?
No, Matthew is though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I told him what you do. I said, Chris is my buddy. He's generous. He's a great guy. And, I said that you really are a computer nerd, and you are. You're good with him. So I didn't mean that as a slam against that. I meant it as
no.
I don't want to hear about programs and,
I understand.
this and bytes and this, that, and the other thing. I can do without that. I really can, but I do think you're a great guy, Chris. And
yeah, he's very knowledgeable. There's no doubt.
I've got that laptop waiting for you when you get back to California.
I was thinking about swinging by on the way home and getting it, and I appreciate that. I'm surprised you still want to give it to me.
Oh, sure.
Hey, you know what's interesting, guys? What I find interesting, and I've been to the Orange County Council meetings a few times now. There's something about green people. They've got this like intelligence. It's almost scary. It's almost like we know what's happening before, like we're good chess players or something. I don't know. But you guys all seem super intelligent and super smart. I can't believe I'm actually here, Mike. Thank you, by the way, for putting this. Thank you, Mike, for putting all this together. That was fantastic. I'm sorry I didn't do. I had a lot going on earlier today. Busy. I just had a big. You guys know who Rodolfo Cortez is?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's running. He was on last night. We had a great interview with him last night. But go ahead. It was good. Maybe something's not happening with my computer.
And
I got my screen up. Darn it!
I'm just now meeting Justin.
I got it.
Yeah, Justin is out in Maine, so he's kind of not in the California group, but
there's places up there where people have 3 eyes. I mean, I think maybe that's where.
If you hear banjos, turn around. I grew up in California, so I'm familiar with a lot of the politics out there. I got family.
You still have that governor with 3 eyes, don't you?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
He's about to leave in November, though. We got it taken care of.
Well, I
Oh,
think
good.
And
he's going to run to
forked
replace
tongue.
Trump. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I'm jealous of you guys because you have ranked choice voting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really excited for that.
That's huge.
We just got the referendum passed, and the judge gave us the okay for the June primary. And then we have to vote on it again in June. And it's been to the people. This will be the 3rd time it's been to the people to veto it again. And it should pass again with a big majority. So we should have it in November also.
Outstanding.
Awesome.
Snork, since you're here, his mic is off. Did you want to have a question or anything? Or mic is on?
Sure. I used to have to hire a lot of veterans. I shouldn't say had to. I liked their skill set. And I needed somebody that understood a certain type of machine repair, and really didn't have anything on the market. So I was trying to think of who would be the closest skill that we could retrain to the skill that we needed. And so I asked if there was any vets with electronics experience, and they sent one over. And the vets that I found often said that they couldn't find a single place that would hire them for electronics. And
Really?
And most of them couldn't talk about like what they did, but I knew that a lot of military projects used some very, very old equipment, and I needed people that had skills not only with electronics but with working with things that are called pawls and little things that would work with really old typing machines that you wouldn't see in the rest of industry, but we still have equipment that worked like that. So I said, hey, I could train those guys. I already know that the Navy or whatever singled them out for having these skills. And pretty soon I had headhunters just calling me and say, hey, I got this guy just got out of the Navy. I got this guy just got out of whatever. I'd bring them in, and even if they couldn't talk about what their skill sets were, I could say, okay, can you do this? Can you do this? They go, yeah. And, and all of them would say, we can't believe you hired us. And everybody else just told us it parked away. I would like to see as active thing for the military. Because first of all, I believe that everybody should have health care. So the military vets getting health care should not be an infant. Just everybody should have it. What I want to see is I want to see a reintegration force equal to the recruitment force that would help people where I was younger, like say, this veteran can do this. This veteran can do this. Don't have to tell me what he did. Just say he can do this. He can work with little parts. He can move this. He knows how to fix things that are tough to fix that were made before he was born. And these people need that ombudsman to say, hey, you did a good job. You were with us for 6 years. You're with us for 3 years. You worked under stress. There's people out there that need people who worked under stress.
Yeah.
And say, okay, we have these tons and tons and tons of jobs like Monster or local, whatever, job placement places where the people have no clue what somebody does on their resume. So I never could get the proper people from them because usually it's some local that had enough money investment to open his own HR, didn't really understand the jobs he was placing. So the military vets, when they come in there, they just glaze over. They don't know who we are, what we need. So when I found one that could get me military guys, I was really happy.
Are we out there so I can start swearing again? Or
We've been PG-13 the whole time. I've been F-bombing all over.
There are some.
It's an adult program.
Are some swear words we're not allowed to say.
Kind of an adult program.
Yes. Yeah. One that starts with a B and ends with USH. We don't say that. We don't say the one that starts with an A and ends with ALRRIYY, whatever.
Don't say the H word. Yeah,
not going to Scrabble.
Hey guys, I'm going to break off. Thank you guys for doing this. Thank you for having me, James. I think that's.
Thank you for organizing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Good luck with your campaigns. Let's break into office and get our green message out.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for this, Green Party Mike. You're awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, Jim. Anytime you want to interview me, help yourself.
If you guys should check out, I've had a bunch of people on here. If you guys, my interviews are pretty cool. They're pretty quick. It's not very long. It could be anywhere from like 30 to 40 minutes.
Okay.
I actually Donna Brazil you guys. I give you everything I'm going to talk about because it is, and I don't care who hears that, because I want you guys, because I know you guys, because I want the Green Party to get wedged in between this two-party oligarchy as soon as possible. So we do as much as, I'm not throwing any curveballs. I will not throw a curveball.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I have a question for you. What do you think about getting the League of Women Voters back into control of the debates?
Absolutely.
I think that would be fantastic.
That would be great because the CPD, I don't know what it stands for anymore because my retention level sucks, mainly because of the military and because of the 80s and the early 90s. But anyway, yeah, there you go. There you go. So this group, this corporation that's able to decipher what the percentage is on a third party coming in. Here's something you guys need to talk about. There's only 2 countries on the planet that actually have 2 viable parties. It's the United States and, don't say it, Snark. He knows that. I'm going to tell you who it is. Are you ready? They're in the Mediterranean. No, they're in the Mediterranean Sea. It's the island is the size of Anaheim, where I live, next to Disneyland. It's Malta.
Malta.
Yeah. So this is how tricked we've been for so long, that there's just 2 parties that do everything, and it's a fucking ping pong match.
A or B. That's so nuts.
That's just crazy.
And I don't think that's going to be much longer. I think Malta doesn't like being grouped with us.
Yeah, exactly. They're gonna break away from us. I don't want to be around with these fucking idiots anymore. Yeah.
I don't want to be lumped into this group. Hold on.
Yeah. We'll be
right back.
How do the veterans?
Oh,
Here,
Cal will be right back.
Coming back in a minute.
Okay. As veterans, how do you guys feel on universal? Everybody serves when they get out of high school.
I believe they need to serve in some form. It could be social. It could be, just doing maintenance work, or social maintenance issues, health. What even as a what am I trying to say? Somebody who is an acolyte trying to learn a new job. I think that the shamanic way of training is something that's been lost and needs to be acquired.
I can definitely say, as an engineer, I trained where we have 3 tiered. This was long ago, where you worked for a guy, and you started off checking his drawings and you started checking his math.
Exactly.
When they got comfortable with you, then you might have moved up to that layer. But his math was also checked by his boss.
Right.
And nowadays, we're gone to a gig economy. One engineer's hired, boom, he's got to come up with his own ideas, good or bad, not being reviewed by 2 older engineers.
Nope, that's right.
That has to change. We need to get a system out there where there should never be an unemployed engineer. They should always be training somebody else coming up.
Absolutely. Well, and anytime you're getting ready to retire, you should have at least 2 acolytes training for your position.
I agree. But again, also, when the kids are going to school, it shouldn't be 4 straight years of school. It really needs to be alternated. 6 months of school, 6 months in the field, 6 months of, and those jobs need to be there for them. Government needs to say, hey, we're going to make bombers. We got to have engineers out there. That means that we're going to have every factory. And up until 1984, I believe, it was required that every industry that was used, if an item was purchased by the Pentagon, at least one of those factories had to be in the United States.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, they would fund it, and tariffs would fund the operation of that plant. So there wasn't a single item used by the military that could be desourced by having another country say it. Do you know that the that the reactor vessels used in our new carriers are at the whim of Japan. Only they can make those vessels now. We've lost the capability to make them.
That's not surprising.
There's all kinds of materials that we have now offsourced to people that we say are our enemies. We're preparing to fight, and they're making sole sourcing our materials. And Ronald Reagan wiped out the law. It also damaged 25% of all funding for proper engineering in the United States. And I feel that we need to return to that law. It's still on the books, but an executive order has it on hold. And almost immediately, that alone could rekindle United States manufacturing.
Well, that's the thing, is that we've gone more and more to a services economy and not to producing anything. And it's a travesty, because we used to make some really wonderful things, and we're really good at it.
Here in Tennessee, that's something that's produced. Yeah. I'm just.
Where is it actually canned? Where is it actually canned?
Right here.
Can't.
Right
is
here,
it? Oh,
Johnson City,
good.
Tennessee. Yeah.
Where did they get the aluminum from?
Well, what do you think I am, Chris? I mean, shit, dude. Hang on. Let me just Google that real quick for you, man.
You don't need to. Just look up bauxite, Australia.
Yeah.
BAUXITE.
They probably get it from the old coal mines up in West Virginia, which is very near here. Yeah, that's it. That's a ticket. That's where they get it, from the old coal mines up there. Yeah. I saw them up there mining aluminum.
What is it the kids say today? There's no ethical consumption under capitalism. Somebody's being exploited.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Exactly. Back in the sweatshop. Jeez. Well, yeah. What do you think about going to the moon?
I'm actually a physics. Going to the moon is an excellent idea.
Yeah.
Anytime we're going to space, it's a great idea.
I think going to Mars is.
Let me just say, I'm not going.
Okay, you don't have to.
Thanks, I appreciate
that. No, go ahead. Smoke a cigarette.
I'll stay here and keep the home fires burning.
Yeah, I believe that we need to have observatories on the far side of the moon, or located around, depending on, because it actually goes around
Pink Floyd too.
That is looking for things from what's called the Oort cloud and other on other things out there. We need to be looking at stuff that is going to be coming toward us in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 100 years. We need to know where that is.
Absolutely.
You can't know.
And we need banks of lasers to be pushing them back, or at least rerouting them a little bit so that they miss us.
But the first step is knowing where they are, and
exactly.
Outside our atmosphere is the best place to look.
Hey,
and the best closest place is out there on the moon.
You never have a cloudy day on the moon.
Now, if Trump keeps going away, I might just change my mind and go up there too.
Well, I know a lot of people that are planning on moving down to Mexico. The only thing is that I think the wall may slow them down. I think the wall is actually to keep us in rather than to keep the Mexicans out. And that just means that the drug cartels have to raise their drones with the drugs another 10 feet. Big deal.
Some of that shit just doesn't work out in the long run. I lived in Thailand for 16 years. I left because I couldn't stand the political climate here either. And now Thailand's gone to hell. It's got a military junta in charge of the country. And, it's not bad news and everything. So,
All right, guys. Hey, I got to leave, but I wanted to tell you all thanks for having me on. And
nice meeting you, Justin.
Yeah, pleasure to meet all you guys. Good luck in your races.
Well, thank you,
Justin. You take care
now.
Justin.
Take care.
All right, see you guys later.
Okay.
Bye. Okay, well, I got your Toshiba sitting here right next to me, waiting for you, Cal.
Thank you, Chris. You're a great
No
guy. You know
problem.
that. And I know I give you a hard time, but I like
No,
you.
you do. Yeah, I it's water off a duck's back.
Good, good. You got thick feathers.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so are we about?
Well,
What?
you guys are talking about moon. Why I got you guys here? Just so I've been looking through a lot of is it moon hoax videos. So some of the things that they say is like there's these two engineers just talking about what are some oddities about the entire moon landing. One was that the rover, which they sent up on one of their later Apollo missions, the battery that they had the specifications for the operating temperature was between, I think, like 75 to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and of course the
Well,
surface of the moon.
is that the Mars rover or the moon? Because
The moon.
I think we're talking about Mars, because
The
I know
moon.
that rover has kept on going for years, and it was only supposed to last like 90 days or 9 months or something like that, and it's just been, the Energizer Bunny,
The rover you're talking about in that case is nuclear powered.
The one on the moon?
No, they.
I'm talking about the lunar rover, not the Mars rover. Sorry.
Yeah, the Mars rovers. Some of the Mars rovers were nuclear powered, but the lunar rovers. Where did they see the specifications for the battery?
From NASA. You could go to NASA's site.
Okay, I'll look there.
Yeah.
There was. I'm not a big moon person, as you might have gathered, but I do remember something squirrely about one of those moon rovers. I distinctly remember that.
Okay.
So
I may have
Iban,
missed
is that how you pronounce your name, Iban?
Ebon? Yeah.
Aban.
I know it's me.
I'm with Eban on this. Something was squirrely about it, and I'm not a conspiracy person or a moon person or anything else. I'm just a guy who drinks beer. But there was something squirrely about one of the lunar rovers.
Yeah, I only knew somebody that did the welding on the rover. I didn't know anybody in the electrical system, so I don't know what the specs on the battery were.
Yeah.
Now, on the rover, though, where it was located would make a big difference. Can they keep it at least? Yeah, what was it? What was the operating temperatures?
Let me not make mistakes if we're actually diving into this. So I'll find.
Because the temperature range on the moon is pretty hefty.
The temperature range when you
really
talk
cold.
about, yes, let's go back to that. When it's in the sunlight,
yes,
it get very, very hot.
Right, and when it's in the
there is no atmosphere.
Right.
So a piece of foil, a quarter of an inch away, that is reflective, would be enough to prevent the heating problem. I would be more concerned about the cooling.
Yeah, probably so.
So, were they able to maintain it at a minimum temperature? That's the question, because it's never going to hit maximum, because I'm certain that it wasn't exposed to the light.
Evan found that already. You see how fast he can do that kind of shit? He linked it already.
Speeding bullet.
Man, he's a genius. Evan has my vote.
What you got, Evan? Hello, Evan.
Oh, I think he froze.
Maybe linking that made him freeze things. I don't know.
Could be.
I saw the link.
Well, I used to work for NASA at the Johnson Space Center. Actually, I worked for Singer Link, the company that built the shuttle simulators.
Yeah, Evan's frozen.
Yeah,
Oh,
we lost him. He'll be
no.
back.
Well, move him out into the sun.
Yeah, he didn't have a piece of foil 6 inches away from him.
Here, there.
I've tried to look at it. It's kind of hard to see the scan. Looking for where the batteries were. This is number 8 is the battery.
Well, one of the issues with the moon is that there's a very fine grit on the surface that apparently works its way into joints and moving parts and kind of rips them apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you can find a way to get around that, you're doing pretty good.
But it was only meant to last for 3 days.
Yeah.
Now, please note that I didn't jump in and say I was one of those intelligent people.
Okay, listed on there
earlier. I do have an education that probably might trump yours in one area because you probably never took more than one philosophy class. I have a master's degree in philosophy, so I'll talk about Immanuel Kant with you or anything like that, but I can't talk about lunar rovers and the temperature on the moon. I was going to say I wish I could, but actually I don't. I don't wish I could.
Yeah.
The lunar rover, batteries had an insulating blanket, 2 dust covers, an SBU dust cover. That's probably I'm not sure what that would be for. A thermal control unit and 2 radiators and a secondary thermal control unit. So they probably had it well covered. It's listed on the actual specs.
I like Snork. I don't know what your real name is, but I like you because you look like a dear friend of mine who I actually called a brother, who had a degree in mathematics and did a lot of computer stuff. We got along really well for some reason. But he passed away not long ago. I don't mean anything by that. It's funny. It's fun to see you talking. It brings back great memories. He would have been able to jump right in with his stuff with you. He was great. He was one of those people that did that math game in the newspaper. What's that called?
Sudoku?
Yeah, he did that all the time.
But
I wrote a solver for that.
He doesn't need it. He would do it in 3 or 4 minutes. He was a fucking genius about math and about a lot of things.
But page 7 on the lunar rover specifications.
I don't think
8 of the items are on thermal control around the batteries.
I don't think Evan is there anymore.
Okay, he'll see this later.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Great. What was your name?
Mitch.
Mitch?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Mitch.
Oh, nice to meet you, Cal. All that, and they gave him a manual transmission.
Oh, yeah.
I know I shouldn't be reading that now.
No, it's good for you. Builds character.
No, I'd be surprised if you hadn't read it, Mitch.
They expected them to fail. They did not expect the rover to actually make it.
Well, maybe that was Evan's point. Maybe they did fail. I don't know.
And it was designed so that it could make it back to the rover with just one wheel still working.
I do remember something going squirrely with one of those rovers. I really do. And I think I might be a bit older than you. I do remember watching the first lunar landing.
No, it seems to
actually
me
when I was on board ship, I saw it.
It seemed to be like one that did fail. It was like
but they got it going somehow.
Well, it was
They did something.
yeah, it was something. Like I said, it was designed to have 3/4 of it fail and still be able to make it home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did. You see, I can bullshit my way through some of this stuff, but I'd rather not do it.
Yeah. Well, there was an awful lot of redundancy built into those systems. Boy, I remember, we had worked an awful lot of the workarounds in order to get some of those backup systems loaded properly, and you had to do them in reverse order in order to get the AMUs on board the shuttle to load up properly. And there were 5 of them. 3 of them was enough to return the ship to Earth. But yeah, that was wild.
Are you able to see the screen, or are you completely on phone?
No, I can see you.
Do you recognize this?
He couldn't.
Yeah.
He couldn't get a video going.
And that was the backup computer for the Soyuz was an HP calculator.
Yeah, we talked about that. This was the second calculator issued to the shuttle crews.
Ah, yes. Well, the first one was with the card reader, and they had
41C
the card readers. The cards in it for different phases of the.
I lost mine. I feel so bad that I lost it. I know exactly what happened to it. It's too late. I lost it.
Yeah. I had an HP 25. I loved RPN.
Yeah, still. I can't
Speaking of losing things, you guys are about ready to lose me now. So, and
okay.
I am on the East Coast here.
Yeah, well, have yourself another beer and hit the sack.
Yeah, and nice to see you again, Chris. Nice to meet you, Mitch. And
nice to see you come by.
I hope to see you guys again sometime. You take care now, okay?
You too. Take care. Okay. Bye, Cal.
I believe that we need to get our space capabilities back.
Absolutely.
And,
well,
I would say that
it's a good thing that Canada is doing a lot of it, and it's a good thing that the ESA is out there doing stuff, and even the Russians, they've got the heavy lift stuff going pretty good, but and SpaceX is out there trying to get their act together and doing a pretty good job. But it's the thing is that Earth is such a deep gravity well, and we really need to get out to the moon and build most of the other spacefaring ships out there on the moon, or L5, or one of the Lagrange points, so that we don't have to lift all this stuff out of the gravity well.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually capable of growing crops down in the under the soil of the moon. The energy is plentiful.
If I can grow crops in my basement, there's no reason you can't grow crops.
Exactly. And every pound that you grow up there, you don't have to lift out of the gravity well. And when you do want to send it someplace, you can send it using a mass driver, which requires no fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And so supplying the moon for colonization is, you can set up the moon as an IKEA waiting for the people to show up.
Yeah. I also think we need to duplicate the shuttle's TDRS system that we put in it with the first shuttle flights throughout the whole solar system. We need to not only be using the moon for that purpose, but we need to be watching for objects.
Absolutely.
And it needs to be not just the moon, but the moon is the place to build the objects for the rest of the solar system.
Right. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better station to get started with, than 250,000 miles away,
There's
know?
also some materials we need.
Absolutely.
We need
rare
iridium
earths
down here. We have
are incredible.
Yeah.
And I got some friends that are working on battery technologies that are going to require an awful lot of those rare earths. And building solar collectors is just not that difficult up there.
Do you have any friends working on getting gadolinium?
Well, there's plenty of it up there.
Yeah, for magnetocaloric cooling instead of using air pressure and mechanical or thermoelectric means.
Interesting.
The asteroids are full of it compared to what we have. Because when an asteroid hits on it here, it eventually finds its way down to the asthenosphere. So that stuff doesn't like to stay in the crust very long. Neither does iridium. So we have almost no surface iridium, except if you go to the KT boundary. In
the KT boundaries, yeah, exactly.
Kind of
yeah. Well, and there it's kind of mixed in with an awful lot of dust from, being ionized when it slams into the Earth.
But these are the things that we need for our children to get through the next 300 years.
They're talking about mining the asteroid belt, and the moon has been collecting asteroids for millions of years, and a lot of it is, you want to go visit another asteroid, turn around and walk 10 paces.
That's right.
And it's a lot easier to do in 1/6 that gravity than floating in space. It's a whole different physics going on if you're trying to mine something in the asteroid belt. It's kind of like doing an overhaul of a bus while it's still in service.
Well, back to the RPN math.
Go ahead.
RPN math, where it had its real thrust was it does things in the order that humans think.
Absolutely.
Instead of systems of the calculators that they put in front of kids with the algebraic operating systems that try to mimic, and the kids can't figure out why X, Y, Y.
Yes, exactly.
And then on the
with the algebraic calculators, they say, well, where's the equal sign? Where's the parens? Well, you don't need them.
Yeah, but that's also the way you think. I'm adding this together, then I'm going to divide. Boom.
One thing at a time.
I think to get back to the moon, we've got to get out RPN calculators in front of kids again.
Sure.
Well, we're going to need astronauts, and they're going to need to be able to think on their feet. You're going to have to do math in their hand.
Sure.
And
absolutely.
They've got to be able to quickly dink it out and still get the right answer. And I don't see that. I see us every time as they're going to fire their engines wrong, because if they have to use a calculator, they're pretty much in a desperate state.
Yeah.
It's a last-ditch effort. They're going to fire the engines wrong if they have to use an AOS calculator.
Well, they're doing it by hand. Yeah, human reaction just ain't close enough to, just a little bit. And I've known a bunch of the astronauts when I worked at the Johnson Space Center, and John Young was incredible. He could fly the shuttle simulator better than the computers could. And when he landed the first time, he pulled the hatch and jumped out. He was looking to see where the wheel was. It was 18 inches off of the X from orbit. That's pretty damn good, Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, those were the days.
Well, but it's going to take more than a year for us to start getting the other things. Now, I don't smoke.
No.
But it's often said that the large amount of nicotine and the large amount of coffee that they drink also kept them at running at a pace where it was possible. Because the original crews had a very short period of time to get anything done.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know if by the time you're talking about shuttle, if they'd cleaned up their act a little bit, but that probably.
I think they did a bit, but yeah, it's a kind of a disturbing thing to see these kids vaping now. They don't really realize the amount of cadmium that they're being exposed to in the vapors, and
I could remember driving
toxic.
My wife was in the hospital in Chicago, and I lived 60 miles or so west of Chicago, and I would take in these commuter trains from the suburbs into town because it's just stupid to drive, and you could not drive or you could not smoke on these trains.
Right,
and that is right about the time vaping became popular, and they hadn't banned it on the trains yet. And I would get sick on the train just from everybody. I mean, there would be hundreds of people on a train vaping, and you couldn't find a car that people weren't vaping, and they had no idea how addictive the vaping was, because you'd see them as soon as they're done. It's like they didn't get the gratification from the cigarette. They've got that vaping pen up again, and the train car would just fill with vaping fog.
It's nuts. It really is nuts. And
I think Bob actually vapes.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking, oh man, I'd really like to tell you that you're not doing yourself any favors. Well, and you heard about Gulf War syndrome.
Yeah.
It's actually aspartame poisoning.
Oh, really?
We sent pallets of diet. No, well, actually, it was Diet Coke. They sent pallets of it into Riyadh, where it sat on the tarmac at Riyadh in the airport, and 114-degree heat. At 86 degrees, it breaks down to methanol and formaldehyde and pseudoamino N. And will that do nerve damage? You betcha. And the ones who mix the Diet Coke with rum are actually able to detoxify it.
Because the alcohol bound before the...
Well, it turns on an enzyme system in the body called alcohol dehydrogenase, which breaks down the methanol and formaldehyde.
Right, but medical emergency rooms, if people drink wood alcohol, they will give them whiskey. Saturate them with whiskey before to enable them to survive.
Yep.
Oh,
well,
what's up?
I sat down on a plane next to a guy from Naval Health Research, and I said, well, I know you can't answer a straight question, but let me phrase it this way. You have no point source for Gulf War syndrome. It's equally distributed from the front line to the back line. And, there's and it's evenly distributed through the population, and except that there are people that are in the middle of any clusters that show no symptoms at all, and it turns out it's personal preference. People who drink the aspartame containing beverages are they're susceptible to that kind of nerve damage. And the FAA actually forbid the pilots from drinking aspartame containing beverages 3 hours before flight, because a pilot actually went into convulsions behind the stick. after drinking hot coffee that had aspartame in it. And it's the most complained about additive, and the the Food and Drug Administration will not take that off of the market.
No, it got accepted really fast.
Well, and it was actually started out as a heart medication that didn't really work very well, and it became an ant poison. And then they realized, oh, it's sweet. Let's use it as a substitute for sugar. And you know,
isn't it
and
like it's the excrement of a bacteria, isn't it?
what? No. It's very easy to make. It's two amino acids that are formed together as a dimer, but it's very unstable.
I thought there was one that was like an excrement of a bacteria. Maybe it wasn't.
Well, an excrement. Well, if you look at alcohol is a waste product of yeast. You know.
Yeah, alcohol's
yeah.
Yeast.
Have some more. Yeah, no problem. This too shall pass.
My wife was a chemical engineer. She called it microbial leavings.
Yes.
Her master's was in plant physiology, and she had to breach those two fields into their most bizarre places.
Oh wow, yeah. Do you remember the tryptophan scare back in the 80s, where there was actually a Japanese company that produced a bad batch and dumped it on the US and European markets. And the Europeans were smart enough to recognize, oh, this is a bad batch. Don't use that batch. The FDA decided, oh, well, all tryptophan is bad. So they took it all off the market 4 days before Prozac came out. And it does, tryptophan is a flow-through model for serotonin. And Prozac is a SSRI, a serotonin, selective serotonin uptake inhibitor, which it's an inhibition model. It gums up the works for the reabsorption of serotonin, and so it fatigues the nerves that respond to serotonin, and you get some very strange behavior with that. And in fact, my wife was well, she left me after she had been on tryptophan. They took it off the market. She went on Prozac, and then she fell into depression and she left, because that was her modus, was to run away. She had no reason to. I was, she wanted to go into college, and I said, fine, and she was on the dean's list in college, but she dropped out of that and left, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. So, but, and there was a syndrome that this bad batch produced, and the cure for it was tryptophan. The FDA outlawed the cure for the syndrome. Is that brilliant or what?
Yeah.
There's got to be somebody that knows, that has the good advice, that has the good, medical know-how, but it seems like everybody wants to take credit for everything, and also it's like a defense mechanism. I think like doctors have been at it for thousands of years, and they always have like something, a lot of it. Well, Michel Montaigne talks about it really well, and he says like if they give you some medicine, and if you, like, let's say, you even get worse, then their adage for that will be something, or their their reply for that would be something like, well, just imagine if you didn't take the medicine. So it's like they just in the medical field, there's just I don't know, there's some sort of different treatment that you get, just even in dentist stuff, like just depending on who you go to, and but there's got to be something that really is like, if you really knew the good doctors, the kind of advice that you would get, and what is that, and how come that's so inaccessible, and like it doesn't transfer around well enough that all the doctors pretty well know where to direct you. It's frustrating. I mean,
I was helping.
The knowledge of whatever it is out there.
I was helping some European doctors with something, Americans and a European on one team, and we were talking about Crohn's disease. Ways to treat or help people identify what to do with Crohn's. And the European doctor is like, oh, well, why don't you guys just filter out the paratuberculosis avians out of your milk like we do? It's like, what? And we have a thing here where nothing gets on the market or gets done if it reduces the amount of sales of treatment materials, rather than what do we do to treat the disease? And that working theory seems to be good for a lot of people. That, well, it's like when you get a tuberculosis test on your arm, they see if you're you get this irritated reaction to having the dead cells put in, and their thing is, well, if you get these dead cells in your milk, your stomach's going to react to them. If you've already been exposed. So they're like completely different to how it happens. But it would be expensive for our dairy industry to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Let people get sick, but we can't treat it back at its source.
Yeah. No accounting for taste.
But I completely agree. Anything we've done for space research has always helped the Department of Defense. Always. The reduction in size of the electronics, things are possible now that just weren't possible if we hadn't had the space.
We learned a lot in war.
Yeah, we wouldn't see them for a long time. And so I think if we want to start saying, let's just convert 25% of our military research to space research, it will probably have so much more money that we'll make up for it in 5 years. We'll be back online and better
Absolutely.
anyway. And
well, that's the thing, that once we start exporting from the moon, I mean, we can do a lot of the manufacturing, a lot of the smelting on the moon, or if we want, we can, put together a package that contains the ores in the proper arrangement, and do a heliocentric cometary orbit of the heliosphere and smelt it right there. And you've got a slag coming back that's already mixed, ready to roll.
Well, one thing is this material gadolinium, the refrigeration based on it, and this was from NASA, and I think University of Iowa, Iowa State and University of Wisconsin, triple grouping together a project there. They found that the refrigeration equipment they made that was gadolinium based uses 5% of the energy that our current best technology for cooling.
Really?
A majority of our energy consumed in the United States is not for heating.
It's cooling.
Because almost every store has a refrigerator, a whole bunch of them. Almost every big operation in Southern California has air conditioning. And the same is true of Florida, Texas. Go across Georgia, that whole area. If you've got this great big base at any of the NASA centers, I bet there's great big air conditioner units on the ceiling. Right?
Oh, yeah.
There's other technology for that. There's like other technology for cooling. It's more.
Yes.
Well, yeah, there is.
Magnetocaloric is 5% the energy usage of
right.
And it also our current method.
Is it a lot more expensive to install, or does it take a lot different like electricity or different like anything else different? No?
There's not that much gadolinium on the planet.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Because
I lived out in China Lake for about 3 years, and swamp coolers are the big thing out there for cooling. Where you're pumping water up on the roof basically and letting the wind.
We have to stop that. And even swamp coolers aren't that efficient. But the thing is that it's almost as heavy as or dense as uranium. So it does not stay on the surface. It wants to take a deep dive as fast as possible to the asthenosphere. And so right there, just gadolinium alone, the return on it for 15 years of mining gadolinium in space will probably pay for the entire change space for what it would reduce in the future beyond that for energy usage, because it would just take such a large share of, and it would start enabling us to actually be able to do other things, because we have a lot of energy of options here, but we waste so much. And then the next one is iridium, because iridium allows us to do things at high temperatures. It allows us to machine other metals very well. Currently, we take the small amount of iridium we have and we vaporize it in a spark. And we take just a few atom thick coating of it on machine tools for really special materials. And it greatly reduces the life of the materials and lets us build a more standard material, so that when we build really important high-tech stuff, we really need to have that accuracy that the iridium allows us to have. So just going out there and getting the gadolinium and pay for it, the iridium is the real bonus. And we currently do things like using coal to make coke to make steel. We could, on the surface level, if we start getting our act together, we could start using concentrated sunlight to heat up, or at least preheat, a lot of the things that we use so much energy for. We waste all this area in the desert when, we put all of our steel mills and stuff up where they could get access to coal and steel off of ships. People don't realize that Great Lakes were a shipping lane, because they could go up the locks, get to the Great Lakes, and that's where coal met steel was Ohio, Pennsylvania, and a little bit of Wisconsin. But we're theoretically, now that we've dug out most of the steel and we're basically just remelting what we have, we can take it to the desert. We can heat it up. We can heat things to 5,000 degrees with the sun. We don't need to. We only need to go maybe 3,000.
Are there any companies that are doing that? And also,
not yet that I've seen.
Stuff, it should be easy to bring it back to Earth. I mean, you talk about the gravity well of Earth, but it should be easy to bring it back. I don't know. Yeah.
But iridium has a melting point of 3,500 degrees Celsius. You can almost re-enter the atmosphere without, if you have a decent cooling system on a spacecraft and you have a thin skin of iridium with radiation, and you have some type of cooling system on it, you could theoretically have
sodium.
You could have a good re-entry vehicle if iridium is cheap. It's heavy. It's heavy. So, but you don't need much. The stuff is incredibly strong as well, and it is ductile. It's going to be harder than steel. It's going to be whacking than steel, but it's still ductile in that range. It's not going to fracture like steel. So I used to have to work with some really fantastic materials, and one that zircaloy was the worst one or funniest one I ever worked with. So we would whack it, and it would not just like mushroom out like another metal would. It would go in little stair steps. And I experimented with welding zirconium or zircaloy. It's actually zirconium alloy by whacking it at ultrasonic speeds.
I was going to say that they made a coherent central like health or no, sorry, after 9/11 it was like the Homeland Security. So, and then you're also making me think of that even more when you were talking about everything's or different things being related back to defense, and actually, I don't know, you said the value of that, but that like, so just it seems like for health and stuff and anything, any technology, it's like proprietary, but when it comes to efficiency, and then that was back to my question also about the are there any companies doing that are preheating to the 5,000 degrees in the desert and taking advantage of that? And wouldn't that be some kind of write-off, or can they take advantage of like?
There was one that experimented with some garbage.
Gold Star or something?
One that experimented with some garbage. Personally, I think that I'm very against in-ground burials. I think that loading a body full of formaldehyde, sticking it in the ground is just, to me, an industrial accident.
Yeah,
I
agree.
That anything else. To me, the basic thing is don't use coal to burn the bodies. Don't use natural gas. Take them to the desert. Concentrate the sun. You get the ashes. You get it clean.
Yeah,
and to me, that is the
would
most
do it.
ethical thing to do to not burden our great grandchildren. And so, lots of uses: steel, reprocessing of plastics, all kinds of things that could be done using sunlight. Thermoplastics do not remelt. We have a lot of thermoplastics, but one thing you can do, if you get them at really high temperature plasma, they go back to carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
So
there's no companies doing that yet. I mean, because
nobody's doing this yet. We have the problem that we only think of things that make us profit, and the only time we think of waste is when we have to get it away from our house. Can't have that sitting in our house, so we put it in a can, and we want them to take that garbage and we want them to make it magically disappear, and we don't want them to spend a dime doing it. And theoretically, we should be spending as much money that we can to be responsibly and ethically getting rid of our garbage as we do making the products that started garbage.
Could we get paid for our garbage?
Well, what's the market?
All their garbage.
No, we need to actually start making jobs. Say, we're going to start doing our garbage ethically. Okay. We have at least 10 states that need people to put people to work. That if we can ethically go in there, we can pull clean water out of the atmosphere. California could be doing it right now. Takes energy. If we had magnetocaloric cooling, so that we could be doing it ethically, energy-wise, we could be condensing as much water as we wanted out of the atmosphere right at California. This shouldn't have a problem. If Nixon had not canceled the space shuttle projects, because way back then he canceled the next ones, the future ones. If he had not done that, we would already probably have it instead of having it be in some labs. Well, right now, the method that we use, where we expand a gas, doesn't work well. It only works in a small temperature range. Magnetocaloric can go all the way down to near absolute zero. And in fact, it's the only way you can cool stuff down for for extremely low temperature lab experiments. But it is tough.
Implementing these innovations would be really great for overall efficiency and that kind of comprehensive, macro, whatever.
The problem is right now it all comes down to, okay, well, how can we solve a profit using it?
Exactly.
That's why government's so important. You have to have them there to incentivize it and regulate it. On the other hand,
that's why Ben Franklin wanted the government to handle anything that was important for the commons that could not be taxed or paid for fairly. He wanted public taxes to handle the common good.
Right. Like the post office.
Yes. Oh, okay, James, here it comes. There you go. I'm just transferring control over to James.
Oh, control.
Sorry about that.
Control is an illusion. Would you get some food? Well, aren't you in Hawaii? Or are you in that? Yeah. 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 Well, you said you were in Anaheim, I think. Really? Wow.
It's not wonderful. Let's put it that way.
So if theoretically you put tons and tons of solar panels, where you were, I don't know, maybe made them multi-purpose, like big huge football fields of quilts of solar panels up in the atmosphere somehow, or well, I guess above.
Well, it's just desert.
Could you deflect? Could you help cool the Earth, and instead of having to use chemicals or something or they were saying to do in Arizona? I mean, is there a way to
big controversy about that right now. All kinds of people are complaining that we're already doing it.
Well, actually, I would love to see solar panels on the roofs of most of the buildings and homes in
I
California.
Meant that people are saying that the government's already controlling our weather with chemtrails.
Oh, right. That seems like a very inefficient way of doing it if you're going to do it.
Yes. On the other hand, I agree with you. Every building that is government owned should have solar panels on it.
Absolutely. The thing is that then it becomes a networking problem of how do you distribute the energy, and which is doable. It's very doable. And I drove through Altamont Pass a couple of years ago when we were having the rolling brownouts in California. Enron was doing all that crazy stuff. Well, they had actually flagged the windmills in Altamont Pass so that they wouldn't turn. They were creating the shortage. And it was just obscene. But hey, they made a lot of money.
Most of the Iowa windmills have now been sold and are constantly being turned off.
Really?
Yeah. They are backup for Google and several other operations. There are, so that they can say that when they're using California energy that they're trading.
Oh man, that's so stupid.
I wanted to mention something. You guys said solar panels. I've been celebrating my 50th with my wife, so I just came in late. Here's my issue with the solar panels on Long Island. They are clearing the Long Island pine barrens to put solar panels in.
Well, I think that's probably wrong.
Yeah.
You said you're celebrating your 50th, your wife?
Yeah.
Damn, you've been married a long time.
Yeah.
Since
Sorry.
95.
I'm just kidding, dude.
Well, James, you need to get going.
Yeah, sorry guys. I've been on trying to get things prepared since 6:30, so it's
No
been
need
kind of a
to-
long
Yeah.
night. Now, just to let you know, Chris, Independent Outsider also has interviews. Red Economics, Stevie does. Snork actually does. You guys could actually continue this conversation with Snork at some point, which I think would be good. I sent you, Chris,
Sure.
some information. I sent you some information on how to get on with me. I'll send you some of the other candidates that I've interviewed. It's just real quick, just hitting the hot key points, letting people getting to know you. So it's all for you. I will Donna Brazil you. And in other words, like I said, I'll give you all the questions up front, in your hands, slipped underneath the table. But so that people just know what you're there for, what you're doing, what you're going to do for them, and so people know where you're coming from and where you're going.
So wait, you're going to scam him and leave the room?
Exactly.
Well, basically, we started this not for profit in 2000. Well, we started the process in 2001, but we finished it in 2002 and got the website up, and we've been having annual, semi-annual meetings on the West Coast and on the East Coast. And unfortunately, we ran into a problem with UC Davis Medical Center, where they won't host us any longer because they've gone with Epic. And Epic has gotten them to outlaw us on the facility any longer.
Where on the East Coast do you meet?
George Mason University.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're having one come up in June, the 16th, 17th, and 18th, and worldvista.org.
Okay.
All one word, worldvista.org, and you'll get the feed.
I may be able to show up on that because I'll be in that area. So
marvelous.
Yeah, I may
love
be
to
able
see you. I'm going to be there.
Okay.
And love to have dinner with you.
Okay.
We'll do it. We'll do it. But check out that website. The details are there, and we have a deal usually with a local hotel that puts us up pretty cheap, and I'm going to have a rental car so I can drive over to George Mason and drop people off.
The university. Hey, thank you guys for coming on. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to Dave.
Thanks, James.
Happy birthday to Dave.
Hey, it was my birthday on the 2nd.
To David. Independent
James
Outsider.
present to me. Yeah.
Happy birthday to you.
Dave Denton is my full name. I also just started a show called Change Agents with Sabrina Giesler. So we'll talk about. We'll see what's going on.
Outstanding.
Yeah. See you guys.
Outstanding.
His gift to me is his tolerance for my lateness.
Every time. Every time. It's like I'm just about to go and just relax. It's been a long day. Next thing you know, Dave shows up. I'm like, fuck. Because I feel so guilty, Dave. Okay, goodbye. Chris,
well,
please, let's get something together and get you on.
Well, thank you. I'll get another laptop. I've got a bunch of them. Just the wrong one. All right. Okay. Man. Take care, man.
Well, I sent you a Facebook message through Messenger, whatever they call it. Let's synchronize. It's really cool. I'll send you some of the last ones I've just done. It's just basically a way for you to let people know who you are when you can't sit there and talk about yourself. You know what? Go to my site. There's a thing, a Monotalk. I did an request Q&A and get to know me with James, and they can learn more about you. You just leave it on your sites. That's what everybody else is doing, because it's hard to put everything down, and you've got a lot of information. So what I kind of do is it's good. No, you know what? Here's the thing about our society and these damn millennials. is they want everything now, today, and they wanted it yesterday. So for me, is I try to put it in bullet points, but at the same time, if it's something that's so passionately important and vital for them to know and hear about, then we can elaborate, no doubt. You know, but on the points that are pretty much well known and everybody knows, you know, we kind of breeze through those things. But we'll work it out. Thank you very much for coming on. Like I said, it is a great thing that Michael, Green Party Mike, set all this up.
He did.
I didn't mean to throw him under the bus or anything, but the thing is I would have done you guys individually because everybody's kind of talking to everybody.
Oh, sure.
So it's good to have you guys. It would have been just better for you guys to just come on an open forum and let people just talk to you. I think that probably would have been a better.
When's your next one?
I'm always on Mondays and Wednesdays, but sometimes I'll have an interview or a Q&A or a get to know on Tuesday or Thursday, and then sometimes like I had to make time for Rodolfo Cortez last night, which is fantastic. That kid's a real sharp kid.
I saw part of that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was good stuff.
It was.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on.
He's a good guy. Oh, well, thank you very much, Jim, and we'll be in touch.
Don't be a stranger. It's a good place for us to hang out.
You betcha. You take care.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. So, like I said, I enjoy helping those that want to help everybody else. I am not going to bring people on here that I think that aren't going to do anything for you guys or for all of us or for the planet. Because you know my core is save the planet and all of its inhabitants. Save the planet and all of its inhabitants. And if you have the the proper legislators and the correct legislators and the ones that give a crap in positions of power and leadership, which they are, hopefully fighting for you, and I'm talking about legislators, judiciaries, and executives, and everything in between, then we're going to do what we need to do to hopefully get this country, well, I wouldn't say it's kind of a strange country nowadays, to get it going in the direction that it should have been going decades ago. So I'm green. That's just me. I've decided to do this, and I want to help all the Greens out there as much as possible. So does Green Party Mike. And kudos to Green Party Mike for bringing Cal, Songmaker, on. Also, Justin Reinhardt, which hopefully he plays Overwatch and plays the character Reinhardt. And it's always good to have Mr. Richardson on, which is really cool. And he's still here, I guess, for some reason. He's trying to get off. But anyway, we just appreciate their time. Look, we know it's an uphill battle, and it's like swimming across the Pacific, but I got to say this. They're doing it. They care. They're doing it, So thank you all for coming on to Montauk. I appreciate all your time and attention, and everybody in the galleys. Oxfox, Kathy B., you're always there for me. Oh, love ya. Ryan Bannock, happy birthday to Dave. Happy birthday to Dave. Happy birthday, David. Happy birthday to you. Good job, buddy. All right. Okay, so that's all. Aloha. Mahalo means thank you, by the way. Just want to let you know. Mahalo means thank you. Mahalo nui loha means thank you very much. And aloha means hello and goodbye with love. So aloha, everybody. Take care. All right. Bye. No, you're not too old. I'm old. Take care, Dave. Bye.